This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Travel writer Rick Antonson returns to the show with a new book that is basically revisiting and updating a book that was first published in 1972. It's called Slumach's Gold: In Search of a Legend and a Curse. Rick once again joins us via Zoom from Vancouver. Hi, Rick.
Hello, and how are you? It's just great to be in another conversation with you.
It's great to have you on the program again. And as I said, this is a book that you've published before, and it's also, for lack of a better term, the three-headed monster because you have two co-writers on this book. What made you bring this book out again, and is there anything that's updated in this particular story?
Well, I can give it a little bit of a sort of Reader's Digest version of the history of this, because the story, which we'll get into, about an Indigenous man who murdered another fellow and in 1890 was hung for that murder. And around this grew up a legend of him having had gold nuggets the size of walnuts. And so in the ensuing years, people have gone looking for this gold. But there became, as part of the legend, word that he had put a curse on the mine, that anyone that found it would die rather than reap the benefits of his gold. So we first heard this story when we were kids. My older brother, Brian, one of the co-authors, along with a friend of ours, Mary Trainer. Brian and I heard this around a campfire. We call it the best campfire story ever. And at that time, our interest was in one day we're going to go looking for this lost gold up by Pitt Lake, not far from Vancouver in British Columbia. And we began researching this when we were in our early 20s. And Mary, Brian, and I came together around the common quest to try and find all the research we could. And we self-published a 56-page book, which went on to be a bestseller. Like, it sold over 10,000 copies. We regrouped in 2007 for a much updated version, which then went on to sell 15,000 copies. So the publisher was interested in us doing a 2024 edition, which they've now made a large format. It's 8 by 10. It's got 200 and some odd pages. It's color throughout. New maps, new legends, new accents on the legend is a better way to say it. So it's so exciting. And it's like a new book, even though it's technically the third edition.
I gotcha. Now, not only have you updated this book in now what is the third version of the book, there are several other people who have written about Slumach. So basically, this seems to be drawing the attention of a lot of people, not just, for lack of a better term, gold diggers.
You're hitting it spot on. In the more recent years, there have been two separate television series, one which is now going into its third year, around the lost gold, or Curse of the Frozen Gold, or Dead Man's Curse, as they get titled. The other authors who have written books or articles have all in one way or another become part of a loose-knit group of friends. And yet it's a legend. So when we all trade stories, they're sometimes with half-truths or ways of throwing our fellow chroniclers off the path of something that we're exploring as a theory. So it's engaging, it's fun, but you're right, a lot of people have their fingerprints on the telling of Slumach's lost gold mine.
Back in the day, when people would go searching for gold, they had, a backpack, a pair of jeans, a pickaxe, and a dream. Today, there's a lot of technology that's out there that could help to assist in any search. And the fact that that hasn't happened yet brings me to the question, there is the legend of Slumach's gold. Is it reality?
Well, boy, so there is part of me that wants to say we have found no evidence to say that Slumach, when hung, had ever had gold in his hands. But there are also family members and others who, shortly after his death, begin talking about him having had gold. And where did he get it from? And might there still be more there? And if there is, could we find it? As someone said to us, all it takes to find a lost treasure is a good map and a lot of luck. So maps have started to exist, whether they were fabricated or, as some say, they came from early gold seekers in the late 1800s, early 1900s. How much of this has truth to it and how much is embellishment? We've tried to sort out in the newest edition called Slumach's Gold, In Search of a Legend and a Curse. And that encapsulates what we've done. We've dug as deep as we can into dusty archives and stories from others, but we have yet to have anyone sit across from us and hold a hand of walnut-sized nuggets and say, I found Slumach's Gold. But others have claimed they have.
And they haven't been cursed?
Well, according to the Vancouver Province newspaper and some recorded in the Vancouver Sun over the years, when we began researching in the 1970s, the tally of people who had died as a result of Slumach's curse stood at 23. Since then, others have disappeared or they've come out in terrible physical condition from a month of searching and then later passed away. This all adds to the rumors, and I think the enjoyment people have of, oh my goodness, if there's a curse, it adds to the drama and the tension, and therefore let me read another couple of pages and look at another map, and I may be the one to finally find it and live to tell about it. But there have been a lot of people who have died and been linked to the notion of a curse.
Has the terrain changed since the days of Slumach? And by that I mean there are rock slides, mudslides, whatever the case may be. Is it possible that wherever the gold is, if it is indeed out there, is not as out in the open as it was in his time?
Well, in his time, if he did have gold and had stumbled across it in an open creek, as people say, that for sure could have, in more recent times, fallen victim to a landslide. On the other hand, if as climate change becomes more of a factor, and we've seen this around the world, but say in North America, where water levels are reduced in creeks, in rivers, in lakes, and they sometimes expose more terrain, which people could search. But you also mentioned that there's more technology. There are easier ways to survey lands and find out if they're, leaning towards where a gold deposit could be found. None of that to date has validated Pitt Lake, British Columbia, as somewhere people are likely to find gold. But the legend remains alive and active, and there are more believers every year who want to go out with the old pickaxe, with a gold pan and a backpack, and the dream you spoke of.
Is the area that is involved in this, is it within either a provincial or federal park?
Part of it is within Garibaldi Park and Golden Ears, and they are restricted in terms of any mining activity one could have. If you and I went on a hike in what has been called some of the most treacherous terrain in all of British Columbia, one of us could in fact walk off the end of a trail that just disappears, or we could, as has happened time and again, have the enveloping bogs just come in with minutes of notice. Or if you're canoeing along the lake in search of a place to go in and begin your exploration, the waves can come up, and the shoreline in many cases is straight up out of the water. It's not in any way hospitable. So there are lots of dangers, but even though we talk of them being in a provincial park, that kind of has, oh gosh, that might mean there's a campsite with a fire pit and ease of access. But around Pitt Lake, the geography is largely inaccessible, and many people have therefore chosen to go in by helicopter as they look for Slumach's gold.
Well, the reason why I asked about the provincial park angle is the fact that, as you just said, you can't mine in a provincial park. So obviously a large company of any kind wouldn't be going looking for the gold because of the equipment they would use, which I would assume is not allowed.
You're spot on. You would not be able to take any mining equipment, nor would you technically be allowed to mine within a provincial or national park. However, if you and I went on an exploration of our own, what would your reaction be if we found ourselves standing ankle deep in a creek and we looked down and found it plentiful in visibly seeing gold nuggets? What would your reaction, or my want to take action be? I think we'd want to pocket a couple of them and then deal with the aftermath once we'd taken them out and deposited them in a bank.
Absolutely.
That would be the temptation.
Absolutely. Are there people still regularly going and looking for the gold? And to what numbers are we talking about? Or are they dwindling down as time goes on?
You would think with our presentation of the facts about the lack of a likelihood that they're going to find anything, that in fact the numbers would dwindle. But I would forecast with the new book now and media interviews, opportunities to talk like with yourself about this, that what happens is more people will want to go into the Pit Lake area and maybe hike around the Pit Polder area, which is quite easy. You feel you're in the vicinity of the legend without putting yourself or your family in danger. But that said, there will be people who strap on the backpack and make their way into difficult terrain where they think they and they alone are going to be the ones to find the Lost Creek gold mine. So I would say that every year there is more rather than less in the way of interest. The television shows have garnered lots of followers, and it is fair to say now that Slumach's gold is among the most famous lost treasures in North America. It's of that stature. It's probably in the top 5, certainly in the top 10 lost gold mines or lost treasures in North America. And that's an important stature on a continent with lots of lost treasures.
Wow. It's another fascinating story, yet another fascinating book. This one is called Slumach's Gold, In Search of a Legend and a Curse. And I said earlier, there are a lot of great books that you have put out. I'm going to just list them all right now. Train Beyond the Mountains, Route 66 Still Kicks, To Timbuktu for a Haircut, Full Moon Over Noah's Ark, and Walking with Ghosts in Papua New Guinea. Those are all your books. It's amazing what you've done. Again, thank you once again for being on the show with us.
I thank you. I always enjoy the conversations, and this book is a special accent because I had the chance to co-author with my older brother Brian and our friend Mary Trainer. We've all got our fingerprints on it. It's nice, but we're not guilty of saying the mine's there, but we're also innocent of really telling people not to become fascinated with it because it is just such an intriguing legend.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
Rick Antonson, co-author of Slumach's Gold, In Search of a Legend and a Curse. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0786, and you'll find links to Rick's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.